Welcome back to the Alcohol Tipping Point podcast. I am your host, Maisner. I'm a registered nurse, a health coach, and an alcohol-free badass. And today on the show, I have Glenn Dougherty Jr. is a personal development coach who helps men get rid of their vices, become sober, and get in peak physical shape, all by improving their mindset. I'm really excited to have you on, Glenn, and I just want to hear your story and how you're helping people. Looks like you are 4 years sober and you're just like out there sharing your tools. And I love mindset work. Like, I feel like that is key. So, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited. Definitely excited to get more into my story. And yeah, and so my sobriety date and it was is October 20th, 2018. And it's been a journey. I don't know how far back you want me to go, but the path to sobriety has been interesting to say the least. The things that I've gone through, especially in my marriage, friendships, just life in general. It's had its ups and downs. So certainly interested to get into my story a little more and explain to you guys how I got to this point and what I'm looking to do going forward.
Well, now we want to know. We were talking before we started recording. You're in Illinois, you're in the Chicago area. Can
That's
you
right.
just give a little bit more of an intro about who you are and what you
Yeah.
do?
Yeah. So married, father of two boys. They're, oh my goodness, my oldest will be driving soon. So he'll be 15 next month. And our youngest, he's 12. And yeah, I grew up originally from Chicago. I've been all over the Chicagoland area, different suburbs due to, my parents were divorced at an early age. So that has had an impact as I've gotten older. But as you stated, I'm a mindset and fitness coach. I help men become sober, and that's been my purpose. That's what I focus on, sharing my story, helping people with their sobriety. And so my wife and I, we have a podcast as well. It started out with, just sharing some lessons from our relationship, which has been very interesting. A lot of the issues stemmed from my drinking, of course. And yeah, we've been divorced. We've gotten back together, got engaged, and actually got remarried a couple of weeks ago. So,
Oh, congratulations.
yeah. So,
Wow.
yeah. But the things have been great.
Love it. Well,
Yeah,
yeah, so let's just start with what your experience was with drinking and just how you
yeah,
came to be now 4 plus years sober.
yeah. Drinking really took off once I got to college. When you're a teenager in high school, yeah, you might sneak off and drink a beer here and there, have those parties your junior and senior year. But once I got to college, that's when things really took off. I got to college, went away to Bradley University, and for some reason, I was very popular when I got to Bradley. And that played a part in, me developing and maintaining this persona as this party guy, this ladies' man, and drinking every weekend in college. It was pretty normal, right? You go away, it's a normal thing, so you don't think it's a problem. You're going that's part of the college experience. But once I graduated college, I continued the same habit of going out and drinking every single weekend. And I'll never forget, I got my first DUI when I was about 26, 25, 26. And for some reason, that didn't stop me from drinking. I don't even remember getting arrested for the DUI. I just remember sobering up and I'm in the back of the police car. Then I'm in a holding cell, and then I had to deal with that for court for a couple of years. But the behavior of me drinking continued, and there were several arrests after that occurred. But it started to impact my relationship with my wife because I was out late at night, coming home 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, if I would even come home some days. You know, Some days it was 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. And with her being a stay-at-home mom at the time, we're only relying on my income. And so from her perspective, there's kind of no way out, right? She's depending on me and sort of dealing with what I'm giving her, which is a lot of heartache and frustration. And it wasn't until I got to the point where admittedly I ended up having an affair with a coworker, okay? And this is what, broke our relationship. When I was having the affair, it got to a point where obviously I knew this was the wrong thing to do, and I started going to therapy first to figure out, okay, I'm unhappy in my relationship. I'm having this affair. That's why I wanted to go to therapy to fix myself and my relationship to figure out, hey, what path do I take? Do I end my relationship with my long term, girlfriend? She's my girlfriend at the time, ended up being my fiance, or do I choose this person that I'm having this relationship or ultimately be by myself? But as I continue to go through therapy, it evolved from fixing that issue and then fixing the drinking issue. And for me, I was a binge drinker. So whenever I would go out to drink, there was really no off switch. And leading up to finding out that, hey, what my issue is called binge drinking. I had to kind of figure that out. I didn't know that that was a thing. I tried AA and I felt like it didn't resonate with me because I didn't feel like I was addicted to alcohol. Like I could go weeks, months without consuming alcohol, but once I did, it's just all night, drinking and drinking. And so as I continued therapy, I ended up ending the relationship that I was having outside of my marriage. Several months later, that person reached out to my wife, explained everything that happened, and then that's when we started the divorce proceedings, understandably so. And once the divorce was final, that's when I realized like I really messed up. I lost my family and it hurt so much because coming from a family where my parents were divorced when I was young, and I totally understand why they did it, but having a nuclear family was something that I always wanted. And same with my wife, because she kind of grew up in a similar situation where her parents were divorced. And so realizing that that goal was now shattered, now I'm having to pick up the pieces and change my life. And what led to us getting back together was I admit I prematurely started a relationship. So our divorce was final in February 2017. And I'm kind of in the midst of a relationship. And several months after that, it started getting serious. And once my wife found out that I was with someone, her issue was, hey, you put me through the ringer for over 15 plus years. Now you're getting your life together. Someone else is reaping the benefits of that. Like, whoa, it was totally unexpected for her and myself. But at the end of the day, I knew that that relationship wouldn't last because as I'm getting myself together to eliminate drinking from my life completely, this person I was dating was just as a heavy drinker as I used to be. That was something that I was trying to get away from, but they're kind of still in that element. And so it was almost as if I was dating myself, like, "Oh, this is what my wife must have dealt with when she was with me." And so once that occurred, we had a conversation and said, "Hey, do we want to try this again? Do we want to get back together now that you've gotten your life back together?" And we both said yes, and it moved pretty fast. We ended up getting a house together about 3 or 4 months after we decided to get back together. We got engaged a few years after that, but it took a lot of couples counseling. We went to couples counseling, and then we had our own individual counseling as well. And so that's what got us to the point where we're at now in terms of mending our relationship and just overcoming all those obstacles that we had and make a long story short, there's definitely a lot more to unpack within that timeline, but that's kind of my journey of, how alcohol impacted, my relationship with my wife and how we got to this point where things are now fixed and we're remarried. So it's it's been quite the
Love
journey.
it. Yeah. Well, I mean, healthy people have healthy relationships, right? And so you had to work on yourself and remove the alcohol to then give it another chance. And good for you all for just being brave and giving it another chance. That's really neat.
Thank you, thank you. And I had no idea, neither one of us had any idea that that would happen. So once the divorce was final, I didn't expect us to get back together. She left as she should have. That's the one thing that you don't want to do is step outside of your marriage, combined with all of the things that occurred while I was drinking. So I had no idea that this would happen, but it did, and our kids are happy, and that's the most important thing because that was an adjustment being a co-parent for
Hmm.
several months. You're used to seeing your kids every day, and now it's, oh, I get them on the weekends now, and trying to make the weekends fun while they're with dad and then having to drop them back off at their mom, that reminded me of what I went through. And so that was something that I had to get over and work through.
Yeah. So you were a binge drinker. I think it's really important to distinguish that or just like point out like you don't have to be an everyday drinker to change your drinking or to have a problem with drinking, right? A lot of people like you said you were one of them. You could go days, weeks without drinking, but when you did, like you were on.
Oh man. On all night. And so there were two instances where I attempted AA. So my mom, she took me to an AA meeting in Chicago on the South Side. And I was still fairly young, and I'm listening to the people share their stories, and there was some arrogance on my end because I'm thinking, hey, my issue isn't this bad, because hey, these folks are addicted. They have to have their alcohol every day. That's not me. I only party here and there. So I don't think I need to do this. So we did that one meeting. Then years later, I attempted another meeting where I went to an AA meeting. Before the meeting started, I'm reading the materials, and I said, "You know what? I don't think this is for me." And I left before the meeting even started. So, but it wasn't until I started to research and realize, you know what? I think I do have a problem. I just don't know what it is yet. I can go long periods of time without drinking, but why is it that when I do drink, I can't stop? And so just using Google, I found this term binge drinking. I didn't know that that term existed before I found this. And so as I'm reading up on binge drinking, it was an aha moment. It was like, okay, now I've identified exactly what my issue is, because before I couldn't pinpoint it. I just knew that I would drink all night and not stop. But once you're able to identify the problem, then you're able to start fixing it. So, yeah, back then it was very arrogant and naive of me to think that I didn't have a problem just because I didn't need alcohol every day, but that was a problem. It was a problem. Binge drinking. It definitely is it's alcoholism. Yeah.
And I think a lot of people do that no matter what their drinking looks like, because you compare yourself to others and you're like, well, I'm not that bad, or I'm not drinking daily, or I haven't, had any consequences, or whatever it looks like. I think we all have done that where we would rather convince ourselves we don't have a problem than admit and take responsibility that we do have a problem.
Exactly. Yeah, a huge lack of responsibility, lack of accountability, and you're also kind of negotiating with yourself saying, "Hey, it's not that bad, so I can continue doing what I'm doing." Right? Just making up an excuse to continue the behavior because for me, there was a lot of fun involved when I would drink, Yes, there were legal issues that I experienced during my drinking. However, there were a lot of good times that occurred, and so realizing that, hey, I'm still having fun, it's hard to break away from that, you know?
Well, how
Knowing
did you yeah, how did
Yeah,
you break away and just kinda stop that pattern?
yeah. So, once my wife and I got back together, that's when I decided, okay, I'm only going to drink on occasion. And as I'm healing and going through therapy, I would only drink on occasion. There were moments where I would binge drink, but it was less destructive. And I think that's because I was healing. However, there was a situation that occurred which led me to stop drinking completely. That October 20th, 2018, I was leaving a job to go to another one, and my coworkers at the time took me out to celebrate, my new job. I was leaving the company and moving on. And so we went to a bar and we're drinking, of course, and it got to the point where, hey, I started binge drinking. Then I end up I don't remember anything until I wake up at my manager's apartment with her husband and her kids. So I'm on a couch and I'm looking up and there's these kids staring at me. And come to find out, I get more information from my boss, like, "Why am I here?" And she's explaining that, "Hey, you were so drunk, you couldn't tell me where you live, so I kinda had no choice but to come home and bring you with me." And I sobered up, got home that morning, and just that ride home, I was just thinking to myself, like, "Man, I screwed this up again," you know? And my wife was obviously upset, and it was just reminiscence of what I had done in the past. And that day, I said, "I'm not screwing this up. I'm giving up drinking." It was like, I'm done. I had already been thinking about it, and that's why it was so easy for me to say I'm done. But that situation, should it have happened? Of course not, but it did. And it led me to ultimately say, "Hey, I'm sober now, and let me start this journey of sobriety." So I didn't know what that was gonna look like, but I just knew, hey, I just need to stop drinking. Yeah.
Yeah, good for you. So, now you're a personal development coach, you work on mindset, like, how did that come to be?
Yeah, that's a good question. For years, my wife has been telling me to, share my story because it could help somebody. And I heard it, but I didn't know what that would look like. Okay, hey, I need to share my story, but what does that look like? What do I do? How do I do this? And us starting the podcast was, like I said, us sharing our story, our journey of our relationship, because we had gone through so much that there were so many trials and tribulations that we know that there's a wide audience that could relate to our story. So during that, I started to share my story on certain episodes. However, it just evolved to, hey, I can help people with what I was dealing with. They can identify with my story. Let me kinda niche it down, and yeah, I just realized, and I got a coach too. So I got a coach that, helped me with my mindset and become, more disciplined, uh, really get into great physical shape. Health and fitness was something that I was always into, and the catalyst that got me to that was I was laid off from a job last summer, and that really impacted myself, not necessarily us as a family because, financially we were okay, but it made me realize, like, working in this environment is not always guaranteed. And so it got me journaling again and really figuring out, hey, what's my purpose? So I went back to those conversations that, my wife and I was having to say, hey, share your story. And at that time, I got out of shape a little bit and I said, hey, I'm going to get back in shape. And I hired a coach, got back in shape, and then that coach just helped me realize like, hey, this is my purpose. I'm supposed to help people with their sobriety, with their health and fitness, and I've been doing that ever since.
That's cool. So what
Yeah.
kind of work were you doing before? I'm just curious.
Yeah, my career has always been in real estate finance. So I
Okay.
started, yeah, originating loans like right before the '08 crisis
Oh,
and
yeah.
yeah, been in residential loan servicing. So I'm kind of still in in that space right now, but my ultimate passion and purpose is helping other people.
I love it. Well, let's help other people, Glenn. So
Definitely.
tell me some of your top tips for anyone looking to change their relationship with drinking.
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say the first thing is to figure out why you're drinking, you know? And that path is different for everybody. And so, although I didn't fully experience AA, that may be the path for someone. Therapy may be the path for someone, or they're going to their pastor for whatever, religious denomination they practice. Whatever that looks like, figure out why, uncover, the issues, that you have internally because drinking, you know, when we drink, we're either trying to, manufacture some sort of, false reality. We don't want to face ourselves or certain circumstances that we're in, So there's a wide range of reasons why we would start drinking. So I would say uncover that first. And whatever path you choose, there's no right or wrong, but just start there. And then once you uncover it, that gives you more mental clarity of, okay, I have this issue. I know why I have this issue. Now I want to change my life. So you have that clarity to change and then figuring out what you want to do after that. And I would recommend figuring out, what your purpose and what you're passionate about. And diving into that because there's going to be empty space and time.
Yeah.
So now you're not drinking on the weekends or during the week. So what do you fill that time with so that you don't fall back into those habits? And then ultimately, we're here to help other people. So once you figure out your purpose and passion, then pay it forward and help other people do the same thing because it kind of helps you stay accountable with your sobriety as well.
Yeah, so uncovering your why. And I think that's just like a good place is just to become more aware cuz so much of what we do in life is on autopilot and we're just not even aware of it. And so taking the time to slow down and like really figure out like, okay, am I drinking cuz I'm stressed, I'm anxious, or is it part of a celebration, or is it or is it just a habit or ritual that I've gotten stuck in? And so, like, awareness just that always seems to be the first key of like behavior change, right? I love that.
Absolutely. Yeah,
And then you have the clarity to change, and like you mentioned, getting help and whatever that looks like for you, if that's with your church or online program or AA or whatever, or even like you did, just educating yourself can be so impactful. Educating yourself about the effects of alcohol in your health, educating yourself about the different options out there for changing your drinking, listening to podcasts, reading the Quit Lit, all that kind of stuff. Um,
absolutely.
and then that purpose and passion, like that comes up again and again. Like it's just it. I was thinking about this drinking journey, like it's really like waking up to the world because 'cause you've
Yeah.
just been living life at, like, well, I don't know, 50%.
Right.
I mean, you've just kinda I mean, really, when you're drinking, you're just in, like, a fog, and
Yeah,
so it is kinda an awakening, and
absolutely.
figuring out what really gives your life meaning and purpose. And I see that so much with people when they give up drinking, they just start to pursue other passions or even going back to like what they liked when they were a kid and
Yeah.
what brought them joy. And like you said, there's so much time.
Yeah, you're
It's like
right.
a magic. I feel like a time traveler, like, you wanna create more time? Give up drinking, and you will, magically create more time in the day, that's for sure,
And
and
money.
then helping other people, so just yeah, what I mean, that's partly why I'm do what I do. I just was like, when I get out of this, I remember telling myself that all the time, especially working as a nurse and a health coach anyway. I was just like, when I get to the other side, I'm not going to leave people behind. Like I am going to be there. I want to help people. I want to be someone that you can go to and be like, "Hey, I'm drinking too much. Can you help me?" And I will have an
Yeah,
answer for you. Cuz I felt like it was hard to get that answer from other people, other, like, even therapists or even, like, at doctor's appointments or something. It was always AA, like, I tried that too. Well, I shouldn't say I tried that. I thought about trying it, and it was just like, I didn't fit. Like, you were trying to
yeah.
figure out, "Where do I fit in this, like, journey of drinking?" It's really not black and white. I think
It's
that
not.
it's it's been painted that way, like, from Hollywood and stuff, that it's, "Oh, you're either, like, bottom of the barrel, problem drinker, alcoholic, or you're normal."
Right.
So, anyway,
Yeah.
just wanted to
That
sum that up because I just think that's so helpful. Well, you call yourself a mindset coach partly, right? Or you talk a lot about mindset. So where does mindset come in? What does that look like?
Yeah, I would say mindset is, it starts with, how you view yourself and, what you want your life to look like. Because, when you're drinking, it's like you said, you're on autopilot, but you're at this sort of low level, frequency state of mind. And in order to change your life, you have to change your mindset and you have to get out of that low level frame of mind. And so you start by getting sort of at a baseline level of, hey, I'm no longer sad, right? Because when we're drinking, we're sad, we're depressed, we're frustrated. It's getting to that next level to where we're at like homeostasis, if you will, and then starting from there and then trying to get to an optimum level of happiness, high frequency. And so, like I said, to get there you have to unpack all of the negative thoughts and negative habits that you're carrying with yourself. And like I said, allows you to have more clarity once you unpack those things. Once you're no longer carrying, the regret, the negative habits, the vices, you're able to, elevate to another level to where you have more purpose, you're more happy in your life. You don't have these negative habits. You're substituting that with more positive habits. And that's the mindset. It's the mindset of, wanting to vibrate at this high frequency, have more happiness. How you view the world is a lot more different when you're sober than when you're drinking. And you have to unpack that stuff and just developing a level of discipline to continue your sobriety and hold yourself accountable to where people want to be around you. You want to accomplish things. It's like you said, going back to your childhood, you start, reliving some of these memories and remembering who you truly are and giving that person to the world. But it all starts with your mindset and going through that path of becoming this person, becoming who you want to be in life that, you're happy with who you are. You're happy with who you're looking at in the mirror ultimately.
Yeah, and I think that sometimes when we're giving up drinking or something, it can feel like we're depriving ourselves, but really it's like, okay, what are you giving to yourself? What are you choosing to do? Like you get to give up drinking. You get to like live to your life's purpose and potential. Like you get this is a gift. And that again, like goes back to the mindset.
Yeah, yeah. People look at, and I've said this before on my social media, that people look at discipline as this, negative and sort of, militant thing. Being disciplined and not going back to, negative habits and thoughts. That's a good thing because you maintain, this clarity. You're continuing to be a better version of yourself. So there's nothing wrong with having some discipline, right? And sticking with what you said it was that you were going to do,
Mhm.
holding your word to yourself. That's the most important thing. It's not a bad thing. There's such a negative connotation
I was gonna
with
ask you,
discipline.
like, yeah, what is your definition of discipline? What does that mean?
Yeah, discipline for me, it's doing the things that you need to do regardless of how you feel about it at the
Mm,
time, and keeping your word to yourself, right? Because a lot of people, they operate in their feelings and off
mm,
of motivation. Hey, I used to do the same thing, before I got to this place, but operating out of feelings and motivation, you're only going to act or do things when you feel like it or when you're motivated to do it. But that always goes away. And so once that goes away, when you don't feel like doing it, then what? Right? It's the discipline that's going to carry you to accomplish that task or do the thing that you said you were going to do. And so that's also holding your word to yourself. Yeah.
yeah, that makes sense, and it's so true, and I think a lot of people say, "Oh, well, I'm not disciplined. I can't do that," or and I just, like, I have to call people out on that. I'm like, "Do
Yeah.
you feel like brushing your teeth every day? Do you feel like, picking your kids up from school? Do you feel like showing up to work?" Like, there are so many things we do in our life because they're just what we do. We have to do them. Doesn't mean we enjoy them. Laundry comes to mind or whatever. We just have obligations to do. And so I think when you can realize like, oh, I am capable of doing the things I need to do and what I said I was going to do and sometimes I do them even though I don't want to. That's
That's
just
a good
part of
point.
life is like 50-50, right? Sometimes it's awesome and sometimes it's awful and we do it all because
That
that's what
that
we're on the earth for, right? That's part of being human. It's just not gonna be amazing all the time, and I think when you can kinda let go of some of that, like, "Oh" I mean, even for me, sometimes I'm like, "This is a shitty part of my job," or, "This is a shitty part of parenting," right? I mean, and literally, think about when your kids were babies, like, you had to change their diaper. Nobody wants to change a poopy diaper. Right?
that's so
But
true.
you
That's a
do
good
it.
analogy.
You
Yeah.
do it because that's what you do. And so I'd like to like dive into some of these concepts or word. I always like to dive into like a word like discipline or something and
Yeah.
just be like,
Yeah.
well, what does that really mean? And what does that really look like? And I think we get into all or nothing thinking like, "Oh, I don't have any willpower." Yeah, you do. I
Yeah.
mean, you do. You need to give yourself more credit,
Yeah.
and think about stories that you're telling yourself too.
Yeah. That's a
Uh,
That's a good point. You made a good comparison about, things that we have to do when we don't feel like doing it. And yeah, it makes you wonder why people don't apply that to areas in their life where they need to apply it. Like you said, you have to pick up your kids. My kids have extracurricular activities. My son does football and track. Like, do I feel like going to a track meet, right after doing all this work all day? Like, no, but I have to. I'm gonna go, support him. I'm just not gonna not show up. And so yeah, you make a good point. Is you already have discipline with a lot of things. So why not apply it to that area or areas in your life where you need to apply it. So it's just a daily habit that you have to develop. And so I think that the challenge is that people want to go from 0 to 100 when it comes to discipline.
mm,
It's, hey, it's okay with taking baby steps. If you have to complete a few tasks every day to get you to your ultimate level of discipline, there's nothing wrong with that, you know? So if it's drinking or, a lot of people like to lose weight, with the New Year's, so don't go from eating the way you eat to just such strict eating in just a matter of days. Like, okay, eliminate sugar, one day, and then don't eat out like you normally do for lunch while you're at work, right? Just starting to slowly change your habits, and day by day you keep your promises of the things that you're going to eliminate, and it just becomes a habit. But don't try to go from 0 to 100. That's where most
Yeah.
people fail.
We want it all right
Yeah.
now. Yeah. So that kind of goes to like, you also help people get into peak physical shape. So
Yeah.
are you doing some diet and exercise training? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, first it's figuring out, what their macronutrients are. So it's figuring out, hey, how many protein, fat, carbs, which ultimately leads to how many calories that you're going to consume on a daily basis. That's the main thing. They say that, health and fitness, it's 80% nutrition and 20% fitness, and it's so true. And so, yes, I have a workout program that they can do, but if their nutrition isn't in order, you won't see the progress that you need to see. And I'll give an example. I was a prime example of that. So when I got laid off, it's the summertime. I relaxed on my diet and I owned it. I said, hey, it's summertime. I'm enjoying time with the kids. I'll get back in shape. Right. And I was still training 6 days a week, but my nutrition wasn't in order. And so I gained a little weight, and when I turned it around and said, hey, you know what? Enough is enough. Let me dial it back. Let me, get back in shape. Yeah, I fixed my nutrition. I was still literally doing the same type of training. The only thing that I fixed was the nutrition. And so you have that byproduct of you start to look good after a while, right? You start to get into better shape and it builds that confidence. But that morning routine, I think people underestimate, a morning routine that includes, working out, training in the morning. And so there's also an element of, journaling and, practicing gratitude. So it's not only the fitness part, but the mindset comes with the daily journaling, the visualization, the practice of gratitude, and waking up early in the morning and completing these tasks so that you're able to attack the rest of your day. And so before you and I spoke, I got all of those things done between 4 a.m. and 6:30. And so now I feel so much better. I feel so much better. And I have to do
Wow.
that every
4?
day.
What time do you go to bed?
So that's the part that my wife makes fun of me about. I go to bed at 8:30, no later than 9. It's like clockwork.
Okay.
Yeah, she calls me old man.
Oh, that is impressive. But you do
Thank
it.
you.
You're committed to doing it. You're using your discipline and you feel good about it.
Yeah, yeah. It's Sundays are my rest day because I train 6 days a week. But Sundays, when I don't train, I actually kind of feel off. And I was telling my wife yesterday, I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna start training 7 days a week. She's like, why do you need to go lift weights 7 days a week? I said, it helps me. So I said, next Sunday, and I had been thinking about this for weeks. And I don't know if it's like the placebo effect, if I'm just telling myself that I don't feel right if I don't lift weights in the morning, but it's part of my routine, right? And so that one day, that part of my routine is missing, And so I've noticed a difference. And so not saying that everyone else should do that, but for me, that's something that I need to do. But having a routine every morning that you stick with, it will impact how you feel and how you address the rest of your day.
Yeah, I mean, we're creatures of habit and
Right.
rituals too. Like we like rituals. So
Yeah.
really, like, kind of also it is another, like, useful thing to do when you are, changing your drinking is to shift your rituals and your routines to the morning and going to
Mm,
bed earlier, eating dinner earlier. That can
yeah.
be really helpful for some people who find that they're drinking, before dinner or at night. Like, okay, eat your dinner at 4 p.m.
Yeah.
Like, I'm serious, like, eat early and put yourself to bed early because that is gonna help you so much, because those hours used to be just taken up with drinking or thinking about drinking. And for
Yeah.
most people aren't thinking about drinking in the morning. In the morning is when they're the morning person who's never
Yeah.
gonna drink again, right?
That's
So take
true.
advantage of that and shifting your routine or rituals to the morning.
Yeah, if you can get yourself in a place where you're just operating at a higher state at the beginning of the day, it helps you to start making better decisions. So it will become easier to, not drink or, attack or continue your sobriety and do the things that you need to do to maintain your sobriety or, elevate your mind state, whatever it is that you want to accomplish, you'll be able to do that, once you get yourself in that state of mind. For me, I believe it starts with what you do in the mornings. Yeah.
I wanna ask you what, like, relationship tips you have, especially
Oh
when
man.
one person is a drinker and the other is not. Like, what is your advice there?
Well, don't cheat on your partner. For starters, that's a good question. I would say communication is key. But before you get to that, it just goes back to what I said before. It's, figure out your issues first, right? Get to a point where you're healed. And so once you do that, if you are able to, fix your relationship, then you have to be on the same page because, and I'll give an example, you know, once my wife and I made the decision to get back together, about almost a year went by where she, I want to say out of the blue almost, became unhappy because she realized that she really didn't unpack or deal with the issues of the past, especially around the affair, right? Because you think we got divorced in February, then we're having conversations about getting back together around July, August. So you're talking about just 6 months. And so while I went to therapy during that time, she didn't really go to therapy or try to heal from the trauma of our relationship. And so once she realized that, hey, you know what, I'm unhappy. I didn't deal with these issues. That's when we started to go to couples counseling. And so at that point, I had to be more supportive towards her because at that time, hey, yes, I'm still kind of, drinking on occasion before I decided to become sober, but I'm pretty much healed from everything that we went through, but she's not. So I had to support her in, her healing, knowing that, hey, there's a chance that she might heal from this and realize that she doesn't want to be back with me. And I just had to own that and not be afraid and just say, hey, at the end of the day, she's someone I love. She's the mother of my children. She's my best friend. However, this is going to end up, it's going to end up and I'm going to be here to support her. And, after year and a half, couple years of therapy, she was able to finally make that switch to, seeing me in a new light, no longer seeing me as the, binge drinking Glenn of the past. She's now seeing me as this evolved person. And so, but it took having to, drop my ego and support her. We talked about our issues. We talked about what we talked about through therapy, and we just kind of worked as a team. So I would just say, hey, if you have to kind of pour into your partner more than they're pouring into you, you might have to do that in terms of, mending your relationship and just having clear communication and support and just being on the same page. That's what's helped us. And I know everybody has a different situation in terms of their relationship, but those were some of the things that helped us mend our relationship. So if you still have a chance, I would say, hey, focus on healing first and showing up so that they see you're making that change. Talking is one thing, but doing and being consistent is another. Yeah,
Yeah. And healing, like, each person is on their own healing journey, and then you can come togetr on the
right.
same page, but
Yeah.
yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that.
No, no problem. Thanks for asking. But yeah, that's to me, that's what it would take.
Yeah. That's fantastic. Well, what are your plans for the future?
Yeah, my plans are to impact more people with, what I'm doing in terms of, the program that I developed to help people and then continue to, share my story. It's been amazing to get involved with the sober community. And I'll admit that this was something that I missed out on during, I guess my recovery and road to sobriety because, it was just me and a therapist and me and my thoughts and journaling. And so hearing other people's stories and being able to meet other people and identify with one another when it comes to the alcohol problems and kind of laughing at our war stories. It's been great, so I want to continue to do that work within the sober community. And same with our podcast that I have with my wife, continuing to grow that and help people on the relationship aspect and other topics that we dive into. But so yeah, just fully living in my purpose and wanting to, help more and more people. That's it's really my focus going forward.
That's great. And how can people find you?
Yeah, they can reach out to me on Instagram mainly. That's where I'm the most active at Glenn Dougherty Jr. That's GLENNDOUGHERTY JR. And then also on Instagram at About This Life Pod, where you can check us out on About This Life. We're on
Yeah.
Spotify, iTunes. Yeah.
So About This Life pod is the one you co-host with your wife.
Yes. Yep.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's
That was her brainchild. I was a little hesitant at first, but I'm like, all right, let's do it. I'm glad we did.
I'm glad you did too, because I think it's helpful for other people in relationships just to see a real life relationship, see like what you all have gone through and how you made it on the other side, and just be open and honest about it. It's
Yeah,
great.
we've gotten a lot of positive feedback, so it keeps us going. So we know we're on the right track. So we'll continue to be upfront about things that we've gone through and, continue to help people.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, I'm so glad that we met and connected.
Same
I want to
here.
thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Alcohol Tipping Point podcast. Please share and review the show so you can help other people too. I want you to know I'm always here for you, so please reach out and talk to me on Instagram at Alcohol Tipping Point and check out my website, alcoholtippingpoint.com, for free resources and help. No matter where you are on your drinking journey, I want to encourage you to just keep practicing, keep going. I promise you are not alone and you are worth it. Every day you practice not drinking is a day you can learn from. I hope you can use these tips we talked about for the rest of your week, and until then, talk to you next time.